Sure. Well, of course, we've discussed this as well on the War and Pandemic show. I think for a lot of people, 1997, rightly, doesn't feel like that long ago, but it does feel like that long ago if you're in Hong Kong. It feels like a century or more ago, frankly, given how much drastic change the world has seen, overseen, and largely ignored over the past couple of decades as we've sort of tried to falsely welcome China into the, quote unquote, quote, global order, whatever that is supposed to mean, because there doesn't appear to be any order to it. Over the last few decades, we've seen what has been long known as the basic law, the basic tenets by which Hong Kong has typically been governed, shredded apart by the Chinese Communist Party and their increasingly authoritarian, dictatorial and tyrannical representatives in Hong Kong. It was 1997 when Prince Charles, along with other high profile, the very tops of British establishment thinking and establishment governance, went over to Hong Kong, having had over a decade's worth of negotiations over passing the territory back to China following 100+ years of British rule there. Now, as that all took place, and people will remember this who were around at the time, but if you weren't, I sincerely suggest you go onto YouTube or similar and find a video of the handover ceremony and the surroundings of it, because it's extraordinary to read what Prince Charles said at the time in his private diaries that came out, I think it was almost 2 decades later, that warned of the Chinese and what they had effectively done in this propaganda coup of wresting control of Hong Kong back. And he warned at the time that he was worried that people who were in charge, like Martin Lee, for instance, of writing the Hong Kong Basic Law, would be arrested by the Chinese authorities that had shown themselves to be very dictatorial, very authoritarian, and kind of a complete disconnect with the British, with the Hong Kongers, and indeed with the rest of the world over reality. And this was manifested in the way that they presided over the ceremony, the way they goose-stepped to the flags and hauled down the British flag as the handover ceremony took place, the way that they used fake wind to make the Chinese Communist flag billow at the takeover period. And look at it now, just a couple of decades later. I'm no fan of Prince Charles, but his premonition has come true. Martin Lee, the author of the Basic Law, has been arrested and is imprisoned, and so are dozens of other leading Hong Kong democracy and rights activists, and indeed hundreds across Hong Kong, being, what George Orwell called at the end of 1984, the boot on the face, repeatedly stamping represents the future of humanity. And that is indeed the future that Hong Kongers are living today.